Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are getting into a really fascinating space, launching a dietary supplement or a cosmetic brand in 2025.
It's a huge opportunity.
Huge, but it's also, defined by this real tension. On one hand, you have massive consumer demand for clean, transparent products.
People want to know what they're putting in and on the bodies.
Exactly. And on the other hand, you have this incredibly intense regulatory scrutiny. So it's high reward, but it can be really high risk.
It can be.
Our mission today is to give you the blueprint, the map, to navigate that risk. We've gone through the sources and we've really boiled it down to 5 core objectives.
Right. The keys to scaling a compliant brand.
First, you have to establish a robust regulatory plan from day one, not an afterthought. Second, think of quality and compliance as your competitive advantage, and that starts with clean, transparent sourcing. Third, you got to align your manufacturing choice. We'll get into this: private label, contract, or in-house, with your specific goals. Speed versus control.
That's a huge decision point.
It is. Fourth, leverage third-party testing and certifications. Trust is everything. And finally, you need a go-to-market strategy that is just rooted in data, content, and the right partnerships.
And look, this isn't just about, avoiding a warning letter from the FDA. This is about building a foundation for real, sustainable growth.
Hyper-growth, even.
Absolutely. Whether you're a startup just getting off the ground or, an established brand looking to refresh a product line, every decision we're going to talk about today has to be seen through that lens of mitigating risk and optimizing costs.
So compliance becomes a springboard, not a stumbling block.
That's the goal.
Okay, let's unpack this. Part 1, the regulatory reality check. I think we have to start with the most fundamental and, honestly, the most confusing part for newcomers.
I know exactly where you're going.
Supplements are regulated as foods.
Not drugs. That is the absolute key distinction. It's the DSHEA framework, and it changes everything about how you operate.
Explain that. What's the practical difference for someone listening?
Well, if your product was a drug, you'd need pre-market approval from the FDA. We're talking years, maybe a decade, billions of dollars in trials.
An impossible barrier for most.
Impossible. But as a food, you have this incredible freedom to innovate and get to market quickly. The flip side is that the burden of proof, the responsibility, it shifts entirely to you.
So you, the brand owner.
You, a brand owner, are 100% responsible for ensuring the identity, purity, strength, and composition of your product. If something goes wrong, if it's unsafe or adulterated, the liability is on you.
And that's where CGMP comes in.
That's where CGMP, Current Good Manufacturing Practice, comes in. Specifically 21 CFR Part 111. It's the rule book. It dictates everything from, how clean your facility is to how you document your processes.
And the sources really hammer this point home. You have to be proactive about this. This isn't something you clean up later.
No, it's not reactive.
So before you even think about a label, you need a plan.
A meticulous regulatory plan. You map every single ingredient to its permissible use. And, this is critical, it defines how you can talk about your product.
The claims.
The claims. You have to align your label with either a permissible health claim, which is rare, or more commonly, a structure function claim.
Let's clarify that difference because it's so important.
It's crucial. A structure function claim would be something like calcium supports strong bones. It's talking about the nutrients' relationship to the normal function of the body.
Okay.
A health claim, a drug claim, would be this product will cure osteoporosis. You see the difference.
A world of difference. And mixing those up is the fastest way to get a letter from.
The FDA and the FTC, they both watch this very closely.
The sources also talk about this recall readiness mindset. That sounds intense.
It has to be. Compliance isn't a folder you put together once a year for an inspection. It's your daily operating state. If a supplier has an issue or a batch gets contaminated, you have to be ready to pull it from the market immediately.
Okay, but let's be realistic. Most people starting out aren't building their own factory. They're using a contract manufacturer, a CM. Doesn't that sort of offload the risk?
No, absolutely not. And if you take one thing away from this part of our conversation, let it be this. You cannot outsource accountability.
The burden is shared, but the liability is not.
The liability flows right back to the brand on the label. If your CM fails an audit, you fail. If they use a tainted raw material, it's your brand that faces the recall and the lawsuits.
So your supplier qualification program is everything.
It's paramount. You have to demand documented CGMP compliance. You need to see their traceability, from the moment a raw material comes in their door to the finished bottle they ship out to you.
And if they can't show you that,
You find another partner. It's introducing an unacceptable level of risk into your business.
that focus on risk mitigation is a perfect bridge to product development. This is where trust is really built, and it stands on 3 pillars: sourcing, testing, and documentation.
Exactly. Let's start with ingredient sourcing. You have to be incredibly selective.
Not just about the ingredient itself, but the supplier.
The supplier, yes. They must be GMP compliant. They have to provide traceability for every lot you purchase. That means you get a certificate of analysis, a COA, with every shipment.
And that COA verifies what exactly?
It verifies the material's identity, its purity, that it meets specifications. And this choice, this sourcing choice, directly impacts how you can position your product in the market.
Because consumers in 2025 want transparency.
They demand it. They want to know the origin. They want minimal processing, verifiable certifications like non-GMO or organic. And you need to monitor those suppliers constantly because one bad batch of raw material can shut you down.
Let's get specific on safety testing and quality. For someone launching a new product, what tests are absolutely non-negotiable?
It's so much more than just proving the main ingredient is in there. You have to do impurity testing.
I quit.
Heavy metals, lead, arsenic, mercury, residual solvents from the extraction process, pesticides. Then there's rigorous microbiological testing to make sure there's no E. coli or salmonella.
And you mentioned stability testing.
Crucial, so crucial. That's what proves your product maintains its potency, its strength, all the way to the expiration date on the bottle.
And all of this generates a mountain of paperwork.
A mountain of auditable documentation. We're talking SOPs, standard operating procedures for every single step, batch records for every unit made, and the COAs and safety David sheets for every ingredient.
So if a regulator calls,
you can produce any record they ask for instantly. That's the audit-ready mindset we were talking about.
I want to pause on this idea of quality as a competitive differentiator. Isn't just meeting the legal minimum enough?
I mean, meeting the minimum is just the price of admission. That's table stakes. Going beyond that by being transparent with your COAs, by constantly improving quality, that's what builds trust.
And trust gets you into better retailers.
It unlocks premium shelf space, absolutely. But more importantly, it builds loyalty with your customers. When they know, without a doubt, that your bottle contains exactly what the label promises, that trust is invaluable.
And that transparency feeds right into the biggest market trend right now, which is the clean label movement.
Exactly. People are reading the back of the bottle like never before. They want simple ingredient lists, fewer fillers, excipients, artificial colors.
And they want to know the supply chain is ethical.
Sustainable, cruelty-free, vegan where it's appropriate. Your whole marketing strategy has to be built on this. And your documentation, your substantiation file for your claims has to prove it. If you say clean, you better be able to prove clean.
Okay, so you have the regulatory plan, the formula is locked in. Now comes the big operational decision.
Yeah.
How do you actually make the thing?
Right. And this choice really dictates your speed to market, your level of control, and your financial risk. You've got 3 main paths: private label, contract manufacturing, and in-house.
Let's break down the trade-offs. We'll start with the fastest to market. That's private label, right?
That's the fastest. You're basically choosing a pre-formulated, off-the-shelf product from a manufacturer's catalog and just slapping your label on it.
The big pro there is speed
Mm-hmm.
and low upfront cost.
Yep. You skip the whole R&D and formulation process. The con, the big trade-off, is control. You have zero control over the formula. You can't tweak it to be different from your competitors who might be using the exact same stock product.
And here's the trap we talked about earlier. You still carry the regulatory burden.
100%. Even though you didn't create it, you're responsible for the label, the claims, the safety. You are putting your brand's reputation on someone else's quality control.
Okay, so option 2, contract manufacturing. This seems to be the sweet spot for a lot of brands.
It is. It's the path most scalable startups choose. You partner with a facility to produce your custom formula.
So you get control over the formula, but you don't have to build a factory.
Exactly. It offers great scalability and much lower CapEx capital expenditure than building your own place. The control is high over the finished product quality, assuming you picked a good partner.
But there are still limitations.
There can be. You might be limited by their equipment. If your unique process needs a special kind of machine, they might not have it. And this is where IP, intellectual property, is so important.
You have to protect your formula.
Before you share anything, you need clear legal agreements on who owns the formula and how it can be used. That protects your competitive edge.
Which leaves the final option. In-house production, building it yourself.
Yeah.
This is the slowest path, isn't it?
By far. The time to market is the longest because you have to build out and then validate the entire facility to be CGMP compliant. And the cost?
It's CapEx heavy.
Yeah.
Massively. You're buying the building, the equipment, setting up a QA lab, hiring all the staff.
But the payoff is absolute, total control. You control every aspect of the process. You can make proprietary adjustments on the fly, and your IP is completely secure.
This is for an established brand then.
It's for the brand where that unique customization is their value proposition. So the decision is deeply strategic. What do you value more? Ultimate control or getting to market fast?
Okay, so once that path is chosen, you're in the realm of operational excellence, which starts with a formal quality management system, a QMS.
A QMS is just the framework, right? It's the set of procedures and policies you use to ensure quality and consistency across the board, from inspecting raw materials to releasing the finished product.
And a key part of that is something called KP.
Yes, KPA. Corrective and preventative actions. Think of it as your problem-solving engine. If a batch fails a test, a good KPA process doesn't just throw out the batch.
And that's why.
It forces you to investigate the root cause, take corrective action to fix the immediate problem, and then implement a preventative action to make sure it can never happen again. A strong QMS with a robust KPA system shows regulators and retailers that you are serious.
And that internal rigor is what lets you go for external validation, like third-party certifications. Is this really worth the cost for a startup?
It is such a powerful differentiator. Getting a certification from a group like NSF or USP or Informed Choice, it translates directly into market access and consumer trust.
Because they're doing an independent audit.
Yes, they're verifying your purity, your potency, your manufacturing standards, often at a level that's even higher than the basic CGMP requirements. It's a non-negotiable for getting into a lot of premium retailers. It's an investment in credibility.
And that credibility has to be reflected in your go-to-market strategy.
Of course. Your plan has to integrate your channels. Are you direct to consumer? Are you on Amazon? Are you in specialty stores? With a demand generation model that's centered on education.
No more miracle claims.
Those days are over. Today, marketing has to be built on educational content, verifiable data, and partnerships with influencers who actually align with your brand's commitment to transparency.
So tying it all together is the final piece, risk management.
It's ongoing. It has to be. You need a formal program that starts with assessing the risk of each of your suppliers. You need robust traceability systems.
And you have to have that recall plan ready to go.
With clear roles and notification procedures defined ahead of time so you can act in minutes, not days. And you have to be monitoring the regulatory landscape constantly. The FDA and FTC change their guidance all the time. What's compliant today might not be tomorrow.
So if we pull all of this together, what's the blueprint?
The blueprint is this. You build on a foundation of compliance first. That's non-negotiable. Then you build quality and transparency into your product. That's your differentiator. And third, you make that strategic, goal-aligned choice on manufacturing.
Compliance gets you in the game, but quality and transparency are how you win.
That's it, exactly.
So looking ahead, what's next? What are the future trends people should have on their radar?
Well, the next wave is really being shaped by those consumer demands we talked about. Sustainable packaging, even more transparent sourcing, and personalization.
Personalization is a big one.
It is, and there are two emerging trends you absolutely have to watch. First is AI-assisted formulation, using AI to optimize how ingredients work together or to predict stability issues before you even get to the lab.
That could be a game changer.
A huge one. And second is that rise of personalized nutrition, where you use individual data to tailor products. That requires an even tighter level of traceability. And underlying all of it is supply chain resilience. Nearshoring, diversifying your sourcing, you have to protect yourself from global disruptions.
So given that data-driven feedback is becoming this core competitive advantage, here's the final thought we want to leave you with today. How will this increasing reliance on AI and data fundamentally change the very definition of traceability in the supplement industry? Will a paper trail from a COA still be enough? Or will traceability evolve into a live, predictive data stream that links the raw material directly to a consumer's outcome?
That is the question.
To explore these standards yourself, your source material points to several key resources: the US FDA and FTC websites, summaries of DSHEA, the actual text of 21 CFR Part 111, and the certification bodies like NSF and USP. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.